So today's video is going to tell you about the angles that are formed when a transversal cuts through two lines. In this case, we're looking at two parallel lines. So I have up here two parallel lines, L and M. L is parallel to M, cut by the transversal end. So now there are four relationships that occur. The first one is corresponding. There are corresponding angles when two lines are cut by a transversal. Those corresponding angles are in the same position on each parallel line. So let's take a look. If I were to say, okay, well here I have this angle that I'm looking at right here. So I'm looking at this angle. This angle is on the left of that transversal and on top of that parallel line. So when I go down to the second parallel line, I'm looking to the left of the transversal and to the top of the parallel line, which is giving me that angle. Those two angles are corresponding. Also, this angle, it's on top of the parallel line on the right side of the transversal now. So when I come look at the second parallel line, I'm looking on the right of the transversal on top of that parallel line. Next type of relationship we're going to be looking at is alternate interior angles. Now, alternate means different. Interior means inside. So what that means is we're going to be looking inside of those two parallel lines. So we're not paying attention to anything that's up here, and we're not paying attention to anything down here. We're focusing on these four angles inside, interior, inside those parallel lines. So if I were to say, okay, I want to find the alternate interior angle that goes along with that angle. Well, I only have three options. And I'm looking for alternate. So what that means is I'm going to look on the other side of the transversal. The alternate interior angle is on the other parallel line, but it's on the other side of the transversal. So here I am, this is on top, this is on the left of my transversal, and it's on my line L. And the alternate interior is to the right of the transversal on my line M. The third type of relationship we're going to be looking at is alternate exterior angles. We already talked about how alternate meant different, and we saw that it was on different sides of that transversal. So now we're looking at exterior. Well, if we were doing interior before and we were inside the parallel lines, where do you think we're going to be now? Outside the parallel lines. So I'm going to pay attention to this angle, this angle, this angle, this angle. Everything inside here, not going to worry about right now. So let's say I'm picking this angle X right there. What is the alternate exterior of that angle? Well, just like alternate interior, I was working inside the parallel lines and going on the opposite side of the transversal on the second parallel line. So in this case, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm outside that parallel line. So now I'm going to look, okay, I'm on my right side of my transversal, so I need to be on the left side of my transversal. Well, that leaves me with this angle and this angle. But I'm looking at based off the relationship between two different lines. So it's got to be on this second parallel line. So the alternate exterior is right there. The final relationship that we're going to be looking at is called same side interior angles. They're also known as consecutive interior angles. These angles are, again, interior, inside the parallel line. So we're focusing in this area right here. But now we're on the same side. That means we're on the same side of this transversal line. So if I'm looking at this angle, what's going to be on the same side of that transversal, but still inside, is that angle. Same side interior. If you pay careful attention to those names, the names of all the relationships will tell you exactly what you need to do step by step, just by the name. So now, how about some practice? So the first thing I want you to do, I want you to pause the video. I want you to identify the corresponding angles, looking at this set of parallel lines with the angles and knowing that A is parallel to B. Just name the angles that are corresponding. And I'll give you a hint. There's 4 different pairs. So that means there's 4 sets of 2 angles that are corresponding. So go ahead, pause the video, see if you can figure it out. So let's see how well you did. Here are a list of the corresponding angles. So 1 and 3 are corresponding. Well, you know these two lines are parallel. 1 is on top on the left of that parallel line above the transversal. 3 is to the left of the parallel line above the transversal. 2 and 4, again, to the right of the parallel line above the transversal. 5 and 7, now they're underneath that transversal. 5 and 7, though, are on the left of the parallel line. And 6 and 8. So those are the 4 sets of the corresponding angles for this figure. Now for some more practice. Now I want you to identify the sets of alternate interior angles. Now alternate interior angles, there's only 2 pairs. There's only 2 sets of 2 angles. So S is parallel to T this time. Here you have your 2 parallel lines and your transversal is U. Go ahead, pause the video and see if you can find those 2 pairs. Did you find them? Well, let's check and see. So we're identifying alternate interior. So that means we're looking inside those parallel lines on opposite sides of the transversal. So 3 and 6 were one pair, 4 and 5 were the other pair. They're inside the parallel lines, opposite sides of the transversal, but you got to make sure that when you have like 4 and 5, one of them is on one parallel line, the other is on the other parallel line. Good job so far. Now you're going to identify the alternate exterior angles. So now you have L is parallel to M with N being the transversal. Pause the video, see if you can find them. There's 2. Did you find them? Well, let's check. So now we're going exterior, we're going outside those parallel lines. So we're not even paying attention to the 2, 5, 4, and 7. You know what? I'm just going to erase those because I don't even need those. I'm looking outside of those parallel lines. So I only need to focus on 1, 6, 3, and 8. Alternate, looking on the opposite sides of the transversal. So 1 and 8, 1 and 8. They're on either side of that transversal. 3 and 6, either side of that transversal. Now, what was the 4th relationship that we talked about? We talked about the same side or consecutive interior angles. So what do you think I want you to find now? I want you to find the same side consecutive interior angles here. S is parallel to T and you have a transversal V. So figure out, and I'm going to give you a hint like I did before. I'm looking for the interior. I don't need these exterior angles, so I'm just going to get rid of them because that's all I need to pay attention to. So go ahead, pause the video, and try to find them. How'd you do? Let's check. So 3 and 5 are on the same side of that transversal inside the parallel lines. Same thing with 4 and 6. Great job identifying those angles. We're going to be going further into these parallel line relationships. And one thing that I'm going to show you that's going to help you before we get there is knowing the relationship as far as the values. So here's a little cheat sheet. When you're looking at parallel lines and the angle measures that are with those parallel lines to transversal, it's only going to ever have 2 things occurring. They're either going to be congruent angles or they're going to equal 180. Most of them are going to be congruent, and normally you can just look at them and tell, but corresponding angles are congruent, alternate interior angles are congruent, alternate exterior angles are congruent, and same side interior angles will add up to equal 180. They're supplementary. This is going to be more of what we're going to be doing further with these angles. We're going to still be identifying them, but now we're going to have to be identifying them based on angle measure.